Welcome to Literary Deep Dives and Discussions with me, A.L. Liskey, the author of the Unseen Operative series. I have joined with me today author Kevin Zelenka. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
All right, so this is actually a very exciting episode for me because it is the first time I've gotten a fellow mystery writer on the podcast. So super duper excited to pick your mind into the criminal crime fiction world. Let's just get started by getting to know you a little bit. Tell us what brought you to become an author and how long has that journey taken?
I've always been a reader, which definitely helps. I've got two 13-year-olds at Apple Tree. They're big readers as well, as is my wife. Always had stories floating around my head. Done some writing, but never published anything. And 2020, when everything was shut down, I dived into it more and had a story that had been ruminating for quite a while and had made different starts at it. And finally sat down and said, I'm going to actually do this. And I got so far, and I loved my characters, and I loved my setting, and it wasn't as exciting as it was when I first started. I said, well, what can I do? And so I said, what if I take my setting and take my stories and just wrote something else just to get my mind off of this? I mean, I was at a place that it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just that it wasn't a writer's block. It was more like I just needed to get some energy going in the story again. And so I sat down and wrote a whole book based on my characters. And then I wrote another one. And I went back and finished the one I started. So I had 3 books and nothing to do with them. I didn't publish anything. So then I went back and said, well, now what do I do? Do I publish or do I keep writing? And say, well, where do you start? So I wrote the origin story, which is available free on the website. And then I looked at the origin story, said, I love that. I love to tell where 20 came from and how we got to start. And I've got 3 books that are finished, but how do I connect the 2? So Cool Change, which just came out June 1st. That's book 1 in the middle there. Baker Street is set for a December 1st launch. It's written already, but I may push it up to October. It's actually heading to beta readers right now. So that's book 2. And then I can work on editing 3, 4, and 5 that are already done as well. So I've got 5 books plus the prequel that are waiting to see an audience. So
that is so exciting. What a process. Wow. I'm so used to hearing people just, they start book 1 and they go all the way and then they might do a prequel later, but you were just in the middle of the series, the start of the series, and all over. And that's incredible that you would go through that mental process of stitching it together after the fact. Did you learn something about yourself while going through that?
I did. I think I have ADHD. I'm glad the stories are finally coming out, but it's been people say, well, God, you wrote those 5 books fast. I said, no, this has been going on for quite a while. I mean, the 2020 was actually the first time sitting down and actually working and on an actual story. But the idea behind book 5, which is the story it started on, had been around for a while. I mean, Tony he wasn't a record store owner. He wasn't a former Army. He was a mailman. I loved the idea based on him as more of the community, more of people. I like that connection between my characters and how they relate to people around him. So he's a mailman, he's driving and he's delivering the mail and he spots a customer's home and a patron's home and he sees a hat in the snow. And in a big city, a mailman would blow it off. But in small towns, they said, well, that's so-and-so's hat. Let me grab it for him. And he realizes that the hat's attached to a head. So that was book 5, and so small towns have always been something. I grew up in small towns. I've always been around small towns. And I love the city, and I love the lights, and I love the hustle and bustle. But something about small towns really brings out who people actually are. So as far as the books themselves, it's the characters, but it's the setting. Because without that small town mentality, you don't get an inquisitive mailman that gets out of his vehicle to grab a hat that belongs to someone.
That's true. I have noticed that small towns seem to be a common theme across crime fiction literature, especially cozy mysteries. I think Hallmark tends to blow it out of proportion to a point, particularly with the murders. I mean, how many people can you murder off in a small town sort of thing? But you're absolutely right that small towns have that closer feel. When everyone knows everyone, then everyone knows when something is wrong. And it's, trying to get to learn who's done something wrong, how they did something wrong, who's covering it up. That's a whole different level of crime right there. So for yourself, what is it about the small town that makes it such an ideal place for crime fiction?
Well, the thing about small towns that people don't realize is that everybody knows your name, but they also know your history. And what's fun about Tony is the fact that when he left his small town, when he left Flat Rock, Minnesota, he was a teenager. So he knows the town, he knows the landscape, he knows the architecture of the town, doesn't really know the people like an adult would. So here he's coming back as a young man, and he's learning right alongside the reader. So I mean, he can walk into Peterson's Five and Dime and tell you 3/4 of the candy selection and the penny candies, but he can't tell you that Mr. Peterson had an affair with the hairdresser 15 years ago. That's something that only an adult would know. So he's kind of learning along with the reader as far as the characters in the town, if that makes sense.
I like that. It does make sense. It gives the reader more of that connection of I'm not just like walking into something that's known. It's an exploration for me too. Very grounding. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this place. Why this town? Why Minnesota?
Grew up in Minnesota. And again, grew up in a small town, Minnesota and Wisconsin, ran the border. Growing up in a small town, Minneapolis was always the place to go. As a teenager, a friend of mine and I would go up there, and we'd walk around downtown and end up in some weird office building. And the trick was always to walk like you know where you're going. Walk like you belong, and nobody will question you. And we did that, and we thought it was just hilarious. In small towns, you can't do that because, again, everybody knows who belongs and where they belong. So for as much as I love the big city, small towns just lend a little more personality to the stories. You know, it's just something about small towns is just click. Because again, the setting is great, and I want people to come back to my setting. But the thing about small towns is you really have to. There is no being anonymous in a small town.
That's very true. So thinking about little background story for all the viewers, I met Kevin through an Instagram post. I was curious about what authors would be interested in talking about for an hour, and he blew me away with his take on this location in Flat Rock. And in that conversation, you said that Flat Rock is just as much character as are the people. So what would you like to expound on about that?
It's basically, it's I love that people love the characters, but the town is, I think, what draws them back. I'll give you an example. If you're familiar with Garrison Keillor in Lake Wobegon, I can't tell you the characters that he talked about when he did his radio broadcast. I can tell you a lot about Lake Wobegon and Powder Milk Biscuits and Bertha's Kitty Boutique. I mean, when he stopped his radio broadcast, a country mourned. And I think that I want to kind of lean into that feeling that people get when they listen to him. And hopefully when they read my books is that it's Tony's the tour guide. He's the one who brings you there, but you're longing to go back. You want to read more. You know, you want to find out more about the town, and you find it through his eyes. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to. I don't want to be another Lake Wobegon, but I want that to be part of the draw. I understand that. I mean, people read those small town Hallmark mysteries or Hallmark shows, and because they can relate to the town, they can relate to the feeling of the town. You can relate to Tony to some extent, but you may not know what it's like to be a former Army MP investigator. But you know what it feels like to walk down Jefferson Street and stop at Bear Claw Bakery and grab a coffee and go up to the B Sharp Records and flip through the records, walk down the lake and feed the ducks. That's something you can relate to. That's a feeling that you can resonate with.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is a very unique approach that I think needs to happen more when it comes to fiction writing. Is a lot of authors, they focus so much on emotion. Emotion is powerful, but they always place it on having relatable characters. And while that is critically important, it's what you're going for is this entire universe that you've built, this town that you've built. That is what is drawing the reader back. And with something like that, it can go on and on and on timelessly versus characters, you know, they age, they die, things happen. If a person is stuck at a character and the character is now gone, you've lost your reader and they've lost the emotion and the connection. But if it's drawn to this universe, to this town, they're going to keep coming back. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is Star Trek. My in-laws are Star Trek fans. I've never seen it, but I know that they love the feeling of that universe so much that they are loyal enough to keep watching it regardless of where the seasons end up going. And I mean, I think Doctor Who fans are pretty much the same, and Star Wars fans, there's series, I mean, Lord of the Rings, and you want to be encompassed by that feeling, and so it does draw you back, and I love that you're doing that. That honestly should be a lesson to me because I have my own series that I have not done that well in as far as that emotional connection to the universe. So very commendable. Your town has so many neat little buildings, and your website specifically, I have to give a huge shout out to that. Your website is so immersive. I have not seen such an immersive website from an indie author yet, but you literally have like, you can check out every little building, you can read the newspaper, and so on and so forth. So what inspired all these different parts of the town?
But I think, again, it's more of the, what do you do in between books? I mean, if somebody just sits at home and says, well, now I read book 2, I'm waiting for book 3, I've got 4 months or 6 months, now what do I do? No, I'll go read something else. I need some way to keep them in my community. I need some way to keep them focused and engaged. And whether it be asking questions about the town or reading about the town or reading the Flat Rock Gazette and reading the little stories. And I mean, I'm trying to post weekly little vignettes written from the Flat Rock Gazette about quirky little things about the mysterious vending machine by the gas station up by the highway. There's a bait vending machine that nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows who fills it, but they know at 6 in the morning when they're going to go fishing and they need worms, they need fresh shiners. That's where they go to get them. And the bait's always fresh and there's always bobbers and leaders there. But it's acceptable that it's there and available to them. The Weather Rock outside White Tide Hardware. There's a rock that's sitting outside a little pedestal outside the hardware store, and it's called the Weather Rock. And you go look at the rock, and if it's wet, it's raining, and if it's covered in white stuff, it's snowing. I mean, it's funny and it's roll your eyes humorous, but these are the funny little stories I kind of grew up with. So why not put them in a fictional paper? Give somebody something to read until the next book comes out.
That is a very good point. What do you do in between books? I've not thought of that. My books take an excessive long time to come out, so that is a provocative question for me because I do have a newsletter, but it only comes out twice a month, and I frankly don't ever know what to put on that. So you definitely have something figured out there. But I love the quirky bits about the town that you throw in. Like, how creative is that? And that keeps your wheels turning, and it keeps you in the atmosphere. So definitely a piece of advice that I'm going to take away from.
Back in. I can write about White Hardware, but I remember him from book 2. That's Tony's landlord. I know Mr. White. I know Mason White. And again, if they can relate to the town and relate to the people, they want to keep coming back. Whether it be waiting for the next book, or whether it be engaging in social media, or they'd be checking the website to see what's new, subscribing to the newsletter because they want to see the little blurb or story in the Flat Rock Gazette's coming out. I don't want to lose them in between books. I mean, I read tons of indie authors and tons of other authors as well, and I swear that my e-reader I'm going through, it's like, does they have anything new out yet? When is this one coming out? And timing it, because I read so much, so I don't want to miss one. But what do you do in the meantime? I mean, you're looking at other books and you do miss one. So it's if I can keep their focus on Flat Rock and the community and the characters until the next book does come out, which is 1,000 words, it's 800 words. It's not that difficult to do when the talent's in my head anyway.
Yes, geez, that is so brilliant. You've got this figured out. Literally, I'm taking notes, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess that then comes the question to me, because you're just like, you're on the ball, you're so creative. Have you ever had writer's block?
I think that, well, yeah. I mean, I think the writer's block is when you turn and do something else. When you have so much going on, is a writer's block for me, or is it you get tired of one idea or I just turn to focus on something different? There's so many different aspects of my site and my writing and books that yeah, it's kind of churning and doing something else so that creative energy can still flow somewhere. I think we all hit hurdles along the way, little things that stop us from continuing, but how do we release it? And I think that working on something else, semi-related, may bring us back to what we had struggles with to begin with. Book 5, it was one of those things that it just, the excitement wasn't there. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it was writer's block, but it just, and that didn't appeal to me. It did, but I didn't know how to kind of continue. So that's where starting something different. I didn't know that what I was writing with those characters and that setting would end up being book 4. I just knew that I needed some way to keep going. And if it wasn't working on this, it had to be working on something else. And that became book 4 and book 3. And then I could go back. The energy was there. So I knew some of the pieces that I didn't have, that I didn't realize I was missing.
So your mind is always connecting to those things, but also like moving on to what I guess I would call it writer's instinct. You know deep down inside where you need to put your energy and your focus, and then you discipline yourself to be there. Tony is an interesting character. Started as a mailman. I guess, is he going to end up as a mailman, or is that just changed altogether?
Yeah, it's changed altogether. The original time was a mailman. I found with that, I couldn't, as far as, I mean, your main characters are investigators. Where at Cozy, for example, they're amateur sleuths. I couldn't justify him taking time off delivering mail to do some digging and question people. So I needed it's like the person who has a bakery or a bookstore. They have employees, so they're able to kind of step away and go question Mrs. Henderson on something that she saw or heard or witnessed. And it's something that allowed him to step away. And in fact, in book 1, or actually book 1 and book 2, book 1, the record story isn't open yet. In book 2, it starts out, little spoiler here, it starts out with the grand opening. And he doesn't even have an employee. But Jeremiah, who's helped him along in the prequel, and he met in the prequel, then helped him on book 1, and Cool Change helped him just sort the records. He was just helping, but he ends up working for Tony. So he's got that relief. Just gives somebody to watch his door when he runs and goes to check on this and question that person and follow the clues, follow the threads.
Yeah,
So no
like
more
that.
middlemen. It's just a record store, which again starts out. It ends up in book 1. The book ends up in Cool Change, where he opens a record store, and book 2 begins with the grand opening, the celebration of the grand opening. So music is definitely tied into what I'm doing.
Yeah, I did notice that. I looked through some of your reviews because, I always do that. I like to know what people are saying about the books that I want to read and so forth. And music was mentioned among it. So I'm curious, how does music kind of interweave throughout your series?
Well, the titles, first of all, Cool Change is a 2-word song title by Low River Band. Baker Street is book 2, Jerry Rafferty. Tiny Dancer is book 5, Elton John. Southern Cross, Crosby, Stills and Nash. So they're all 2-word book titles, or 2-word song titles, excuse me. Steal Away, Robbie Dupree is the prequel. So yeah, they're all tied into music. That's where the music store kind of comes in. Tony's, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and music was definitely a big part of my life. And I think the demographic of who reads cozies, not saying there aren't younger people who read them as well, but they're my age, and so they read and they go, I know that song, I know that album. And being the music store, people, they talk about music quite a bit, both older music and newer music, but being a vintage record store and with records coming back as well, and the popularity of the last couple of years, I think it's a theme that people can definitely relate to. And one of my readers, she actually became a beta reader for me. She's like, I'm reading to find out what albums or what artists you're going to talk about in the next one. Any way to draw some interest. And this music has always been an interest of mine. And Jeremiah is a wealth of knowledge regarding music. Opinionated music, definitely a wealth of knowledge. So Tony turned to him for answers quite a bit. The banter between the two of them has been pretty fun to write.
Banter it's super fun to write. Is that one of your favorite parts of writing?
I think that just delving into the characters, and obviously setting is important, but delving into the characters and how different they are. I don't know if you've looked at audiobooks at all, but I've had a few people say, oh, you got to do an audiobook. I listen to it when I travel, and I love the idea, but finding someone who can really get that personality. And Tony's is easy. Tony, he's pretty no-nonsense, and he does a lot more listening than does talking. Brenda, his love interest, who that kind of progresses. There's a little bit of a subplot, a romantic subplot within the series. And that's been a kind of arc I've learned I've had to play with a little bit to make sure that it matches. So there will be some people that follow that arc as well. But finding someone to really match or really catch Jeremiah's voice is going to be difficult. Because he's old and he's grumpy and very opinionated, very smart. But he's been fun to write. And the humor that he exudes is definitely a draw for some. I've heard from some of the readers that he's their favorite character. He's not even the main character, but they read him for Jeremiah.
Yeah.
I think all of us have a little bit of a Jeremiah in us.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking. I still haven't started your book. I'm so sorry for that. I'm overwhelmed with my TBR list of other authors, but it is on there, and I am excited to get to it. You're absolutely right. I think in every series, there's always somebody besides the main character that people attach themselves to almost religiously. For my series, it's Detective Granger, and he's great, but I'm like, he's not the main show, and apparently he is. I get that. And then with audiobooks, capturing the character is so critical. It is really difficult to find an artist who can really resonate with that. So for you, have you looked into different artists yet, or are you just staying away from it for now?
I haven't yet. Right now, it's working on getting book 2 out. I'm not being pushed, but I'm lucky that I've got the buffer between where I'm at right now and how many books I have finished. But there's still the editing process of those. And I had this great idea that every 6 months is perfect. But in this genre, people they binge. They start one and they want to read all of them. And so it's really, like I said, it's December 1st was the plan for book 2. I think that I can have it done by, with editing, beta, and arc reading, I think I can have it ready for October 1st. That puts me in every 4 months. It puts me on 3 books a year, which I've got the buffer, but can I keep up with the pace? And I've got some other ideas. I've got some outlines I've worked on, but marketing is tough. The time it takes, the draw. If all I could do was just sit and write, Yeah, I could do 4 books a year or 3 books a year, but that's the hard thing is most of my time is spent marketing and plus all the extra stuff I'm trying to put into the website and to keep people engaged and keep people tied to the community and tied to Flat Rock. Being indie isn't for the faint of heart.
Amen to that. I should get a dime for every day that I get on Threads that there's not some indie authors saying I'm so tired of marketing because we're all it's exhausting. It's such an uphill battle, and for some folks seem to have it down to the T, and then the rest of us, like, one thing will work one month and then the next it's just not working anymore, so it's hard to figure out.
Your video content's incredible. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you're online like all the time. I mean, I spend most of my time going through scam emails.
Those scammers, oh my gosh. Don't even get me started with those. When I'm in between health coaching clients, that's when I do my reels and stuff. But when it comes to scammers, I have to respond with something witty, and that's my writing practice is how can I tell you off in a different way? And so bad. Yeah, but for you...
Delete. I just delete.
Just...
And it's funny because there's some that I want to. And when I first started getting the emails, I had because you know that's coming. The minute you respond, then the next one's like for only $1.99 or whatever the case may be. And I had a canned response that I did in a Word that I was going to just cut and paste into every single one. At this time, we're not doing any paid relationships, and at the point right now, I've forgotten what that even is. I delete because I maybe there's some book clubs out there that are interested in featuring the books, but I doubt it right now.
Yeah, they wouldn't email for it. It's a fun thing. I mean, for me, I'm always responding. Yeah, just read the book. If you want the book, just buy the book, read the book.
Search.
Look at my bio. There's a link. Oh my goodness,
Can I leave a review? I don't know. Can you? You don't email somebody asking if you can leave a review. If you really want to leave a review, you just do it. You know.
Exactly, and that is what I've told them is if you leave a legitimate review, I'll recommend you to other authors, but I'm not going to pay you and I'm not going to talk to you if this is a whole thing. Otherwise, feel free to pay me this amount of money for my time because you talked to me, and that's when they usually walk away because they don't want to be scammed back. So music with your series, very important. Does it weave into your mysteries?
Well, actually, it does in a sense. There's a Deacon Blues, which is a Steely Dan song. That's book 4. A local disc jockey. He's a Friday night favorite from the locals. Miss Loring, the librarian, loves him. He's got a little cult following himself. He's found dead in his home, and it looks like an overdose. It looks like suicide in a sense. But he stopped drinking. He was in the program, and there are people saying that there's no way this can't be. And Tony looks into it. But his last broadcast, there were some weird things with it. And Jeremiah brought it to Tony's attention first thing. And that's one where they've got to go through the last broadcast that Jeremiah recorded, as a matter of fact. He's got a whole bunch of tapes, cassette tapes, filled with reels. And so they actually listened to the tape of the broadcast in the shop. And they need to try and hopefully decipher some clues. But again, being music fans, anybody who's listening because of the era of the music that I mentioned will enjoy that book for sure. Book 4, look for it.
Yeah, cassettes, my goodness. My mom, they're currently getting ready to move, and she has all these old cassettes, and she keeps asking me, do you want them? And, like, I want them, but I don't have a cassette player, so I'm like, dang, I don't know. I'm sure I could find one on Amazon, but there are very few folks of my generation who actually know what a cassette is or a cassette player, and, like yourself, I grew up with those, so I think they're the neatest little things. Yeah, Salvation Army. Oh, that's where I should go.
There you go.
I'm sure there's one around here.
It's cheaper than
we
Amazon.
Just moved too. That's true. Amazon has everything, including our books.
Now, are you other places? Are you wide or not? Just on Amazon?
I do go wide with Ingram Spark, and I have been getting myself popped into little indie bookstores here and there. Don't know if anything's selling, but honestly, I'd be surprised if they did because my book is so thick and people are so broke nowadays. But it's all good.
Yeah, I was excited that. I mean, I wanted to go wide. Ingram was important to me, not just for small bookstores, indie bookstores, but for libraries. I want my book in the library. And actually, I went last week. We just donated, again, 2 13-year-old boys. We've gotten the habit of going through all of their books. And, I mean, Dogman was really big at one time. Now they're out of Dogman. And was some of the other series. There's so many different... When they read one thing, kind of like me, they binge. So they read the entire series. And they're expensive. But I don't know how many blocks of books and how many different series we actually brought to the library because now they're into something different, you know. I've got one who reads horror. He loves Stephen King, and so he's all the kid books are done. He doesn't want nothing to do with them. And again, I mean, stacks and stacks and stacks. So we donate them to the library, and they turn around and give them away and sell them, and it's for a great cause. But I stopped there to donate books and to ask about, by the way, do you guys have any author events going on? And trying to get my book in. So they led me in the right direction, but I'm excited to actually go in the library and pull the book out, and there it is, you know?
Yes.
I don't want to
Yes.
limit where they can get it, because Amazon isn't the end all be all, as you know. I want people to be able to find it no matter how they read, whether it be a Kindle or whether it be Kobo or whether it be Apple or anywhere else. So if they want to read it and pay for it or read it for free at the library, I want them to be able to do it. I want them, if that's what walks them in and introduce them to my world, so be it. I mean, the first cozy I read, I was at a garage sale. I picked up D is for Deadbeat, Sue Grafton.
Sue
She has the
Grafton.
alphabet murders. And
Yeah.
so,
Okay, that's where I've heard it.
Yep. And I loved it. So I went back and bought A is for Alibi and B is for Burglar and C is for Corpse, and I read those, and I watched her writing progress from the first one and evolve as I went through. It's fun, you know. But it was a garage sale, 50 cents, $1.50 maybe I paid for it, and it got me hooked. So if the library gets you hooked on my series and my town, and so be it. And even if that's the only place you read it, hop online, you know, read some of the stories from Flat Rock and learn about the characters and the businesses. And I want people to be introduced to this story, but fall in love with the town. I want to be my little Lake Wobegon.
Absolutely. You know, I think libraries are where I fell in love with most of the books that I read. So I think libraries are really a powerhouse for really getting things out there. So definitely a great place to look into. I want to pick your brain a little bit about how you go about writing your mysteries. I've talked to other authors online, never on a podcast, just about how they place their clues, how they build up to, you know, the climax, how they resolve the crime. So for you, how do you create your mysteries?
I'm not saying challenging, but it's gotta be something that Tony cares about, you know. And it's talking about book 4, for example, Deacon Blues, that it's Jeremiah that comes in just perplexed and frustrated and about the DJ. I mean, there's no way he would kill himself. And listen to this. Here's the tape. Or he goes home and gets the tape, but still it's one of those. But he's helping Jeremiah. Tony's helping Jeremiah. Book 3, Brenda's taking the trash out in the bakery, and there's a car in the alley. And she goes and looks in the car, and a playwright and actress in town, the local community theater, is dead in the driver's seat. She calls it in, and they take her in for questioning, thinking that she's a suspect. And Tony's called from Stacy, who's Brenda's partner in the business. Stacy calls us, hey, they took Brenda downtown, and they're actually treating her like a suspect. And so Tony, of course, goes to the police station to find out what's going on. But he cares about Brenda, obviously. So little things like that where he's got to care about the situation that pulls him in, because he's not an investigator. I mean, he was in the past, he was in the army, but he's just trying to get back to normal life, back to civilian life. He's trying to manage a record store with a grumpy employee, even grumpier antique store owner next door who hates loud music. Well, that's Jeremiah's thing is music should be played loud, and Miss Prensky doesn't agree. So she often bangs on the wall in between the two businesses, and that's a funny ongoing mini antagonist that people like to follow. But
I bet.
he's got to care. You know, and there's got to be something that pulls him in, because he's not there to investigate. It's not his job. He's there to just run a small business. So whatever it is has to weigh on him enough to kick things off. So that's how it starts. And I think that it's finding the motives, just the reasons behind it. You know, I think the motive drives it more than anything else. Who has motive, and where's the path lead from there? You know.
So, do you know the motive, like, do you know the antagonist and the motive before you end up writing, or do you discover it as you go?
I kind of have an idea who, and then it's kind of figured out it's got to be somebody who people care about, but not that much, not enough to mourn their loss or the loss of that character later on down the road, because they're doing how many years for murder. If it's a murder, I mean, and not all the books are, but I think it's find that, and then weaving the story kind of around that, and then that's all. Who else has motive? And that's where your red herrings come in, you know. And then how do you hide that motive well enough and build enough clues to bring to that final conclusion of that one person? And of course, all the trails that get there amongst all the other suspects.
Yep, all the trails. So for you, do you have to outline all these things, or does it just neatly exist in your mind?
It's an outline process. I'm. It's funny because you get people on social media that ask if you're if you're a pantser or a plotter, and I'm probably a plotter to a fault, just because it has to make sense, to
Mm-hmm.
me. If it doesn't make sense to me, it can't make sense to my readers. So it's got to make sense to the characters and the setting. I trying to figure out the timeline as far as when the books take place. I was going for an earlier timeline, and I don't know how I was going for a later timeline, but I mentioned Yellow Pages. It's like, wait a sec, the Yellow Pages don't. Nobody uses the Yellow Pages anymore. So it's like, there's different things that I wrote that later on when I looked at it, I had to kind of update. Because these are notes and these are chapters that I've written that as things progress technology wise, that I've had to fix, because if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense. These little things that those careful readers pick out, and if they find errors like that, then they're going to keep looking for things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no enjoyment in reading a book if all you're doing is looking for things the author got wrong. So I need to make sure that I'm clever enough to make sure that there's consistency and coherency in what I write, so that readers can actually enjoy the book as they're looking for where I screwed up.
That is so true. Readers of crime fiction, they have this extra sensitivity where they're looking at all the little details beyond most readers. It might seem like baggage to some, but it is necessary technology and build up and relatability to the time era. So it is critical to have those little things as well. As far as outlining, I'm slowly converting to that side of the train. I started out as a pantser. My first book was a pantser, and I outlined as I went, and then my characters would destroy that storyline and I'd find myself going a different way. But since that time, in order to keep the series cohesive, I've had to outline, and now I have a giant crime board on my wall. So for you, is it each book has its own mystery, or is it each book has its own mystery and there's an overall series thing happening?
Each book has its own mystery, so they're standalone. You don't need to read the prequel to read book 4, but there is a timeline. The like I said, the romantic subplot follows that timeline of the books. So if you read book 4 and you go back and read the prequel, for example, Brenda and Tony are together. They just meet. So it doesn't hurt the story, it doesn't hurt the mystery part of it, but reading them in order doesn't hurt. I mean, you get to watch that arc of their romance. That was again the challenge of, here I've written 3 books where he owns a record store. How do I get there? Here's a prequel where he doesn't have a record store. The prequel is basically him coming back to town to bury his mom. His mom passed away of cancer. And there was always a story I had in my head when I wrote the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote 3, 4, and 5, that's why he got out of the Army. He got out of the Army to come back to kind of spend time with his dad after his mom died. And that's all there was. I knew nothing else about it. That was where the backstory ended. But say, well, if I do a prequel, why don't I delve into that a little bit more, and how do I do it? And my father passed away in 2021. My stepfather passed away in 2020. And when my biological father passed away, I had to do a lot of the planning. The funeral home, and listening to him ask me, well, what kind of flowers? Like, I don't know. I mean, the other part was already done. We knew he was being buried. That part was done, but this tiny little range, what songs? It's like, I don't know. We didn't write this stuff down. He didn't tell me. It's, how do I? So I had to kind of channel him and try and figure it out. And so writing the prequel and him, the opening scene is he and his father at the funeral home and kind of going through some of the details, the prayer cards and things like that. And the funeral home director walking in the meeting with his employee and nudging Tony and say, can I talk to you for a sec? And saying that they had a break-in the night before, and somebody had stolen the hands of one of the decedents. And I know you're an investigator. Can you kind of help me look into this a little bit? I don't want to go to the authorities, because that would ruin me. If this got out, and that's kind of where the prequel kicks off. But writing about the emotional beats between his father throughout the book was interesting. And I won't lie and say that it didn't hit me at times.
Was that one of the more difficult parts for you to write?
I think that it was challenging, but it was easier in the sense that it wasn't my story, but I could see the parallels. It was easier to write because of the parallels. It was just yeah. It was one of the scenes I had to write that I could definitely write from experience in some aspect.
Yeah. I've often had authors come on and they talk about how writing certain scenes is like processing for them, or they will find that, this part of my life suddenly shows up and now I have to write about it, and it can be a little difficult at times, and other times it can be really I guess, telling. You learn things about yourself, you learn things about life, reality, and others, and sometimes it can open eyes a little more empathy to others. And I mean, I've found that throughout my series as well. It's those parallels. I like that word that you used. Parallels
Yeah.
definitely pops up, especially among different characters. So that is
Yeah.
interesting.
I don't think that, I mean, Tony and I have, there's probably some similarities, but we're completely different people. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not autobiographical for sure, but I mean, even the relationship he has with his father, I mean, his father is completely different than either my father or my stepfather were. But there's still, I don't sure if it's, I don't think that it's, I write that I wanted that growing up, but it's more of, I think Tony and his father are in a place that I ended up with both my fathers later. Just the comfortableness and the ease, you know. We got much more comfortable later on just conversing and talking and almost as peers versus that father-son relationship. And Tony has that relationship with his father now, where I don't think I got that with either my fathers until later. You know, so
Hmm.
it's I'm giving him what I didn't have to go through as a child. I'm giving him that the resolve. I'm giving him that now.
Nice. I like that. In creating your characters, was there anything that surprised you about any of them? I've met some authors that they pre-plan their characters so well to a T that their characters do nothing that surprises them. They just everything flows so nicely, and that has not been my experience. I The way that characters come to me, I don't design my characters, they come to me, and when they come to me, I know about them, but I don't necessarily know them until they announce themselves. And the first example off the top of my head is Detective Granger. I didn't know his first name until one day, like I'm writing this dialogue and he says, "My name is Phineas with a P." And I said, "No, that is not your name. I'm not okay with that. I don't like that name. I don't like that letter." And too bad for me because
It's
that's who
Phineas.
he is. Yeah, that's Phineas. And I mean, there's some characters, like in the second book that I wrote, there's a very annoying reporter who is, all my characters are kind of based off of people that I've met in my life. Hate this person passionately. And yet this character, I have got to keep him in my series because I love him so much for the person that he is in the book versus the person that he is in real life. And
Real life.
it's awful. Yeah.
It's fine. It's like Greg, my deputy chief, another one of those side antagonists that I mean, he and Tony are like oil and water in every single book, and he'll meet his fate later in the series. He's
Oh.
actually he's in an outline right now, which is great. But almost every single book, Tony's relationship with Kent, the police chief, is great. There's still the little bit of animosity. I mean, it's stepping on toes. I mean, let us do our job. You're not in this line of work. You go do your little record store thing and let us buzz cut hairdo. You know, the whole he just the wanna be gung ho. I'm a cop, and that's the way I always wanted to be. And you're not gonna. I mean, no empathy, no anything, and that's Greg to a T. And like I said, oil and water between the two of them. And Tony pushes his buttons because he can, because he's a civilian, and he's got no authority over Tony other if he's not doing anything wrong. But yeah, there's a scene in book two that towards the end that the climax that's pretty awesome. They think they've got the right person, and I don't want to give anything away. I'll just leave it as the end of book two is going to get you. Yeah, it's one of those moments that you wait to write, and when you're writing it, it's like yes, yes. You root for Tony the entire time.
I love
I
it.
think that when you talk about characters kind of coming to you, like people like Stacy, Brenda's
Hmm.
business partner, she's sassy. She's quick. She always has the right thing to say. She's fun. She calls Tony Mr. DeLuca. And there's not a big age difference. There's probably 3, 4, 5 years between her and Brenda, who were classmates in school, and Tony. Tony's a little bit older than the two of them, but she still calls him Mr. DeLuca more out of a fun jab than anything else. And Tony embraces it. In doing the Baker's Dozen episodes, I found out that she's looking for a guy. Well, there's one of the writers I did a Baker Dozen article on whose name is Stacy, and so they're laughing about Stacy and Stacy with an E, and they asking if he's single when Brenda interviews him. Stacy, the bakery co-owner, is asking if that Stacy is single. So I'm gonna make her a little bit promiscuous, you know, and trying to mate. When Tony and Brenda go off and do things, it's like find me back a date, we can double date kind of thing. So
Hmm.
those are things that just kind of I haven't really delved into her character, but she's revealing herself as a writer, you know.
Little things popping up. They do, these characters, they have a mind of their own. It's
Yeah.
fun. For the viewers, The Baker's Dozen is this adorable little thing that Brenda, she likes to interview authors. And Kevin writes it into this beautiful, not an interview, not really an interrogation, but it's as if the author was there in Flat Rock. And I was able to participate in one of those. And I think you just do a phenomenal job with that.
Brenda's always been, from my very first idea of Brenda, she's always been a mystery fan. And I think I said it, I've written it a couple times, that if Agatha Christie and Dashiell Hammett had a love child, it'd be Brenda. She's always got a mystery in her purse. There are bookshelves in the bakery, in the Bear Claw Bakery, that people are free to grab a book and read there or take with them as long as they bring it back. That's kind of her thing. And so the idea was, how do I find an audience? How do I find mystery lovers? And say, there are authors out there who have readers, and you can read more than one series at a time. How do I find those readers? It's like, I know, I'll interview those authors, and they can share with their audience, and maybe their audience want to read my books too. But how do I do it this creative, other than just having to read every single author's books? Because, I mean, with writing my own series and doing other content as well, I don't have time. I mean, you're talking about your TBR pile. I've got probably 5 or 6 other authors that I follow, and they're churning out content. I mean, churning out a lot of content. So, I mean, I'm always busy reading and trying to find time to read other authors' things, still doing what I'm doing, and then do a review on a book is challenging. So how do I do it otherwise? Well, I know. Let's send an author 13 questions, a Baker's Dozen worth of questions, and I'll just have Brenda interview them. But do it conversationally like the person actually came into the shop. And it's been fun. And I haven't pursued it even more than the 4 or 5 I have up right now because of time and releasing books. I mean, when I first started, Cool Chains wasn't even out yet. And now I've been busy trying to get the next one going. But thanks for the plug. The Baker Dozen series have been good. If you're on the website, there's a spot for Tony and Brenda and Jeremiah, the 3 main characters. Hit their content, and you'll find the Baker Dozen articles under Brenda.
Yep, it is super immersive and fun. So I think it's just brilliant that you do that. Well, just in closing, is there any, what is your one piece of advice that you would give an aspiring author?
Don't stop. Write it all down. I mean, I have tons and tons of ideas that I've had over the years. Write them down. I don't care if it's a paragraph or a sentence or a chapter. Write it down and put it aside. You don't have to finish everything. You'll never know when an idea can blossom. You never know when an idea pops up and goes, that'd be really good for this or really good for that. I mean, I had an idea a long time ago about a writer, magazine author, who spends 6 months of the year in Seattle and 6 months in San Diego, and he lives in a boat. And every fall, he heads down the coast back to San Diego. And every spring, he makes his way back north again. And the whole idea was that a girl he was casually dating in Seattle, here it is fall, and he's getting ready to head south, and she's like, I'm coming with, right? And he doesn't want to tell her, no, this is a solo trip. This is my time to think and write and do my thing. And being a freelancer, he write from basically anywhere. And he ended up taking her. And trials and tribulations that they encounter on their journey south is what the book's all about. But I won't give any more of it away. But I just had some more ideas on that recently. It has nothing to do with my series at all. It's like, but you've got to work on it. So write this stuff down because you never know when lightning will strike and you'll want to.
True. That's brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Kevin. I have learned so much from you. I have all my notes here. I'm so excited. Yes, absolutely. So to everybody viewing, check out the description below. Kevin's website will be on there. His socials. Again, please check out his website. It is incredible. It is like a golden standard of what you should probably aim for. And check out his books.
Unless you want time, then don't do it if you want time on your hands.
Yeah, unless you want time. All right, and that will be our wrap for this week. Please subscribe to this channel so we can continue to support indie authors, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.